The house still smelled faintly of incense from the funeral service. It clung to the curtains and mixed with the bitter aroma of untouched coffee on the table. The quiet was heavy, unnatural, no laughter, no casual chatter, not even the hum of the television in the background. Just silence. It was the kind of silence that made every sound, every shift of a chair, every shallow breath feel like an interruption. I sat at the very edge of the couch, my knees pressed together, palms damp against my skirt. Across from me sat my stepmother, Ruth, stiff-backed in her chair, hands folded so tightly in her lap that her knuckles had gone white. Her eyes never rose to meet mine. Beside her, Daniel, my older brother, stood near the window, his profile sharp in the dull light. He hadn't spoken a single word to me since the burial 3 days ago. Not even once. We were waiting for the lawyer. Waiting for the moment when my father's last words, his will, would be read aloud. I had told myself this meeting would bring closure, that it would be a chance for us to grieve together, maybe even remember the good in him. I wanted to believe that, even in death, my father would finally find a way to keep us connected. The sound of the front door opening broke the stillness. The lawyer walked in, his black briefcase clutched tightly, his expression neutral. Everyone shifted slightly in their seats, as if bracing for impact. He placed the folder on the coffee table, clicked it open, and began pulling out sheets of paper. As his voice filled the room, the words seemed to blur into a monotone rhythm. To my brother, Daniel, full ownership of the family home. To Ruth, the remaining business shares, savings, and personal belongings. Every sentence felt like a stone being laid into place, building something solid, immovable. And then nothing. No mention of me. Not even a line. Not a word. I felt the air drain out of my lungs. My name had been skipped over as though it didn't exist. My father's will had traveled from start to finish, yet I had vanished somewhere in between. My throat tightened. I leaned forward, trying to steady my voice. "Excuse me," I asked carefully, was there anything for me? The lawyer hesitated, flipping back through the pages as though he might have missed a line. He shook his head softly. "No, that's all." I stared at him, unblinking, waiting for him to correct himself. But he didn't. That's when Daniel finally turned. He faced me with a look that wasn't anger, but something colder, satisfaction. "You don't get a share of the inheritance," he said flatly, his voice steady and merciless. "You're just a stepchild." The words struck harder than I expected. I had always known there were divides in this family. My stepmother never tried to hide her distance, and Daniel's resentment toward me had been simmering for years. But hearing it spoken aloud, so directly, so publicly, something inside me cracked. My stepmother lowered her gaze further, as if ashamed. Or maybe relieved that Daniel had spoken the truth she had always believed. The lawyer adjusted his glasses, saying nothing. The room felt complicit in the silence that followed, as though they had all agreed on this narrative long before today. I tried to breathe, but each inhale felt sharp. My father, had he really left me nothing? Was this his true opinion of me? That I was less than, undeserving, not his child in the ways that mattered? Then I noticed it. A corner of a cream-colored envelope, tucked neatly beneath the stack of legal documents. My name, written in my father's familiar handwriting, peeked out. The lawyer saw where my eyes landed and quickly shifted the papers to cover it. His movement was small, but deliberate. And Daniel noticed. "What's that?" I asked, my voice trembling. The lawyer cleared his throat. "It's nothing that changes the will." I leaned forward, pulse racing. "It has my name on it." "I want to see it." The lawyer's hesitation confirmed what I already knew. It was meant for me. My father had left me something, if not in the will, then in that envelope. Daniel's jaw tightened as he stepped closer, his presence suddenly towering. My stepmother's face paled, her fingers twitching nervously in her lap. For the first time all morning, I felt the power shift ever so slightly. They didn't want me to see what was inside. Which meant it mattered. I didn't know what the letter would reveal, an explanation, a confession, or another betrayal. But one thing was clear, this story wasn't over. The moment I asked for the envelope, the air in the room shifted. Daniel's eyes narrowed, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. You think a letter is going to change anything? Dad made his choice. But his voice carried something else, fear. It was faint, but I caught it. The lawyer adjusted his glasses, clearly uncomfortable. He hesitated before finally sliding the envelope toward me. This is personal, he said, his tone quieter than before. Not a legal document. Just words your father wanted you to have. My hands trembled as I picked it up. The paper felt heavier than it should have, as if it carried all the weight of the years I had spent trying to belong. I wanted to tear it open immediately, but Daniel stepped closer, looming over me. You're not going to read that here, he demanded. His voice wasn't a suggestion, it was a warning. Why not? I asked, staring up at him. My voice shook, but I didn't look away. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. His clenched fists, the tightness in his jaw, told me everything. He didn't want me to know what was inside. I slipped the letter into my bag without opening it. My stepmother's voice finally broke the silence. Maybe it's best to let the past stay buried, she muttered, eyes fixed on the floor. Nothing good comes from digging it up. The hypocrisy burned. These were the same people who had just told me I wasn't family, that I didn't deserve a share. And now they wanted me to stay quiet? I stood, clutching my bag close. If it means nothing, then you shouldn't care what it says. Neither of them replied. Their silence was answer enough. That night, back in my small apartment, I sat at the kitchen table with the envelope resting in front of me. The city outside was alive with noise, horns, sirens, muffled conversations drifting through the window. But in my kitchen, the only sound was my heartbeat. I tore it open carefully, pulling out a single folded sheet of paper. My father's handwriting filled the page, slanted, uneven, but unmistakably his. If you're reading this, it means the others didn't want you to. I need you to know the truth about where you came from. You're my blood, no matter what anyone tells you. And there is something hidden, something I couldn't leave in the will. Look in the box in my study, under the floorboard. I froze, the words burning into me. My father hadn't abandoned me. He had left me a message, a trail, a secret that Daniel and Ruth clearly wanted buried. I folded the letter back into the envelope, my hands shaking. Whatever was under that floorboard wasn't just an object, it was the reason they wanted me erased from the will. And now I knew one thing for certain: if I wanted the truth, I was going to have to fight for it. The next morning, I drove back to my father's house. The driveway was still lined with flowers left after the funeral, already wilting in the late sun. The house looked the same as it always had, but stepping inside felt different now, like crossing into enemy territory. The study was just as I remembered it: heavy oak desk, shelves stacked with books, curtains half drawn. My father had spent hours in this room, sometimes with the door shut, sometimes letting me sit quietly with him. My chest tightened at the memory. I crouched down near the far corner of the room. The floorboard beneath the old rug had always been slightly loose. My hands shook as I pried it up. Dust rose in the air, and there it was, a small wooden box, scratched and plain, hidden where no one would casually look. My fingers brushed over it just as the sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway. I froze. The door creaked open. Daniel stood there, his arms crossed, his expression cold. I knew he wouldn't stay away. I straightened, the box in my hands. This is mine. He left it for me. He stepped forward, closing the distance between us. You really think Dad wanted you to have anything? He made it clear, you're not blood. My anger rose. Then why hide this from me? Why were you so desperate to keep me from opening that letter? For a split second, his eyes flickered, betraying more than he intended. He lunged for the box, but I stepped back, clutching it to my chest. The struggle was brief, silent except for the sound of our shoes scraping the wooden floor. My heart pounded, but I didn't let go. Enough. Ruth's voice cut through the room as she appeared in the doorway. Her face was pale, lips pressed into a thin line. Daniel, stop. He froze, his hand still on the box. Ruth's eyes shifted to me, and in them I saw something unexpected: fear. Not anger, not resentment, but real fear. What's in here? I demanded. Neither of them answered. The silence was louder than any confession. I tightened my grip and pushed past Daniel, rushing out of the study and down the hall. He didn't follow. Neither did Ruth. Maybe they knew it was too late. Back in my car, I set the box on the passenger seat. My hands were trembling so hard I could barely put the key in the ignition. Whatever was inside this box was the truth my father had wanted me to see, and the truth my brother and stepmother would do anything to keep hidden. I didn't wait until I got home. I pulled the car into an empty parking lot, locked the doors, and set the wooden box on my lap. For a moment, I just stared at it, afraid of what I might find. Afraid that maybe Daniel was right, that I was never meant to belong. My fingers fumbled with the small brass latch until it gave way. Inside lay a stack of envelopes, yellowed with age, and a single photograph. My breath caught in my throat. The photo was of my father, years younger, holding a newborn in his arms. On the back, in his familiar handwriting, it read, "My daughter, my blood. Never let them take that truth away from you." I blinked hard, trying to steady myself. Beneath the photo, the first envelope was addressed to me. I unfolded it slowly. "I couldn't write this in the will. Ruth and Daniel would fight to keep you out. But you are my biological daughter. I kept it from them because of shame, because of mistakes I made in my marriage. The documents in this box will prove it. Birth records, hospital forms, everything they don't want you to see. You are not a stepchild. You are mine." My chest tightened, tears blurring the words. All those years of feeling like an outsider, all the times I wondered if I was imagining the distance, they had wanted me to believe the lie. And I had. Until now. I dug deeper, pulling out the official papers. Birth certificates, medical forms, even a letter from the hospital with my father's signature. The evidence was undeniable. A shadow fell across my window. I looked up and saw Daniel standing there, his jaw tense, eyes darting to the box in my hands. He motioned for me to roll the window down. I did, just an inch. "You don't understand what you're doing," he said, his voice tight. "This will ruin everything." I shook my head. "No, Daniel. What ruined everything was lying to me. He was my father. And nothing you say changes that." For the first time, I saw something break in his expression, not anger, but defeat. He stepped back, hands falling uselessly at his sides. Ruth stood behind him, her face pale, her mouth pressed shut. Neither of them spoke as I started the engine. Driving away, I felt lighter. Betrayal had carved deep scars into me, but this truth, my truth, was stronger. My father hadn't left me out. He had trusted me to find my way. And I had.